All right, let's now cross live back to Tswane, where Mapisa Ngakula, Minister, is currently addressing those there.
Led by a lot of misinformation circulating on social media and other platforms, which are intended to cause confusion and unnecessary panic. We will make the official announcement as and when it is necessary. Government has condemned and continues to condemn in the strongest possible terms the violence and the destruction of property which occurred in these areas. Violence, damage to property and infrastructure, and infringing on others' rights and free movement, including incitement of others to commit this type of offenses, will not be tolerated by law enforcement agencies. Those who make themselves guilty of such acts will face the full might of the law. I should say this, by banning buses, this has really impacted negatively on the lives of the people in that area of Mamelodi. Firstly, a number of people couldn't go to work this morning. Young children who should have gone to school could not go to school. So when we arrived in Mamelodi, we had this big crowd around the area where the buses were banned. But the good thing is that in our midst in the delegation, we had the Premier of Gauteng, who then subsequently addressed the community. And the community was very excited, actually. And it was not a hostile group of people we met, which suggests that, in fact, in these communities, you just have a small group of people, a small group of hooligans who are destroying property. And in fact, if we had had more time, I think in the course of the interaction with them, we would have come back with a lot of information. In this regard, government has increased visible policing of members of the South African Police, and monitoring of hotspots will continue. The law enforcement agencies are currently hard at work to ensure that calm returns to all areas. Criminal matters arising out of these incidents are being prioritized. Amongst others, the DPCI and courts will be prioritized so that matters can be dealt with speed. Approximately about 20 cases are under investigation, and so far some arrests have been made, and some will be in court maybe by tomorrow. The Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster is working in a coordinated manner to ensure that all relevant state institutions respond adequately to the situation. Government reiterates that violence is not the answer. Our democracy offers many avenues for people or communities to address any grievances they have. We therefore call on communities to raise grievances within the confines of the law. Those who ultimately decide to exercise their right to protest are advised to do so in a peaceful and orderly manner. The Constitution guarantees the right to peaceful and unarmed assembly or demonstrations. It also allows for peaceful picketing and the presentation of petitions. Government, however, has a responsibility to protect property and to protect those who do not wish to participate in protests or strikes against intimidation and/or threats of violence. Security personnel will act decisively against individuals who engage in acts of intimidation and incitement of violence. The law enforcement agencies will not hesitate to arrest those who are found to have contravened the law. And in that respect, we invite whoever has information to come forward, bring that information to the law enforcement agencies so that we can act with speed. Communities and individuals who are unhappy can express their dissatisfaction through a number of constructive platforms. These include public participation forums, izimbizo, public hearings, and other democratic processes. Those who ultimately decide to exercise their right to protest are advised to do so in a non-violent manner. We've noted the criminal elements. We have taken advantage of the situation by disrupting the socio-economic activities, which has led to the closure of certain businesses, for instance, here in the CBD. No public space will be turned into a no-go area. Government reiterates that any form of intimidation or looting by protesters will not be tolerated. Government would like to thank the law enforcement agencies for their quick reaction to contain the situation and continued assistance in establishing and stabilizing the affected areas. We would also like to thank all persons in these affected areas who continue to conduct themselves in a responsible and law-abiding manner. We also want to thank all those who have already come forward with information so that the police are able to effect the necessary arrests and conduct their investigations as quickly as possible so that these cases can be concluded as quickly as possible. The South African government has and will continue to ensure that all people within our borders is and feel safe. Colleagues, we invite you to raise whatever questions, and all the colleagues who are at the panel here will then field the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. May I check if Cape Town is also on together with us here? Cape Town?
Yes, Chair, we're with you.
Thank you.
Yes, we're with you.
We'll start with Cape Town, and after Cape Town, we'll come back to Pretoria. Cape Town?
Over to you, Marianne.
Good afternoon, Marianne Merton, Daily Maverick. Perhaps we could start off by confirmation. Have government offices in Tshwane closed as reported on social media? Also, there were rumors about the deployment of the SANDF. Can you confirm or deny that? A specific question to General Mawela, who I believe still is the chairperson and leader of the NAT joints. What specifically was discussed? And does stepped up visible policing involve Operation Fiela? And a question to Minister Mahlobo. You were present when the first tensions and the shootings and the violence erupted on Sunday evening. Where have your state security agency personnel been? What has been their influence? And a question to anyone who would like to answer it. I'm intrigued to hear that government says that there are various platforms like Izimbizo, etc., petitions for citizens to raise their grievances. The origins of what is unfolding in the capital city is an ANC intra-political matter. So I'm not quite clear how your comments regarding this are applicable. Or are you saying that government is now picking up the pieces of an ANC political fight? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Cape Town?
Thank you very much. Kulekan Mokubane from Business Day. Wanted to ask an open question to anyone within the cluster on the visits to Mamelodi and the information that Minister Nqaula alluded to that you could have gotten given more time, and whether this information pertains to the conspiring factors behind these acts of violence, and if there's any more information to provide in that regard. Thank you.
Paul, last one. Paul.
Yes, last one.
Good afternoon, Ministers. Paul Vecchiato from Bloomberg. Yeah, just going back to the Defence Force, if the Defence Force hasn't been deployed, have any of their units been put on standby in case they needed? Secondly, the increased visible policing, does this mean that the police will also be bringing units and members from other parts of the country? If you can just answer that, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cape Town. I'll allow the ministers to take this first batch, and then we will deal with Pretoria in our next batch. Thank you.
Ministers and Deputy and Premier and senior managers, the generals of the police will then take some of the questions. But I just feel that I need to respond to a question on the South African National Defence Force, whether the South African National Defence Force has been deployed or whether we intend to deploy. Situation is assessed on a daily basis. Every morning, every evening, the net joints will come together and assess the developments in the country. And depending on the outcome of that assessment, depending on the report, which they will then present to the structures that be, then a decision will be taken whether to deploy the SANDF or not. You'll recall that last time when we had Operation Fiela, we emphasized the fact that the South African National Defence Force is the last line of the defense of the Republic of South Africa. And therefore, you don't start by deploying the SANDF before you've fully exhausted all the potential, all the capacity you have within the police. So for now, we have police who are deployed everywhere in the country. And obviously, whatever information we have and whatever investigations which will be conducted will be intelligence-driven. Maybe I should respond to the issue of whether government is picking up pieces of an ANC problem. No, we're not. We are here, sitting here as a cluster which is responsible for the security of the South African people. Ours is to make sure that South Africans are and feel safe all the time. So when you look at us, even though you know that we come from the African National Congress and we are the members of the governing party, but for now, look at us as ministers responsible for the security cluster, ministers responsible for the individual departments, together with the Premier of Gauteng. So we're not here to address you about issues of the African National Congress. All that we are concerned about, disruption of activities, disruption of the economy of the country, disruption of schooling. I said earlier on, children were not able to go to school today, but also the destruction of property. If you have a grievance, you can't raise your grievance by destroying what you have. And we've been talking about this, even during the Fees Must Fall campaign, remember. We said young people cannot destroy what they already have because they are demanding more. You demand whatever it is that you are demanding, but you keep what you have, because it has been difficult for us as a country to get to where we are today. So destruction of infrastructure is not acceptable and cannot be acceptable, and therefore the law enforcement agencies will be on 24-hour alert until we are certain that the situation is calm and that people have at least been provided with the opportunity to raise their issues. But what we are refusing is the fact that people express their views in the manner in which they are currently doing. And we should also remember, all of us, that this is a capital city. This is Pretoria. It is a capital city of the Republic of South Africa. And there is no way in which the law enforcement agencies will allow the kind of anarchy which has happened in the past 24 hours to continue, precisely, amongst others, for that. Not that we don't care about other cities, we do care about our citizens, we do care, we do worry when people destroy properties, but I am saying here now, here is a capital city, and we are not going to allow anarchists, hooligans, and gangsters to take over maybe what is a legitimate concern of the communities and take it over and turn it into a state of anarchy. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Thanks to Comrade Minister for Defense and Comrade Premier and the generals and other senior officials. With respect to the question of the information that is being circulated, Martin will remember that there has been an SMS circulating. Not only that SMS, it actually said, please share this post urgently to any and all in the area sub-zoning called red. Violence has now escalated to Pretoria, CBD, and is moving fast. Church, Bloem, Bosman, Andries van der Walt, and Paul Kruger streets are no-go zones. Please stay away from Sunnyside, Arcadia areas as riots are moving that way. Businesses are requested, please release staff to get to safety and evacuate buildings in anticipation of increased violence. All trains have been suspended. Please do not go onto public bus, and this being targeted and banned. What the minister has said was our chair for the cluster. There has been a circulation of information. The matters that are happening here, like we saw in the other protests before, they are actually misinformation intended to cause panic and cause havoc. Those of you who are from the media houses who have been here in the CPD, there is nothing in these streets. Well, there is some element of being tense situation. And when our intelligence services, they've done an assessment, it was a false flag. But we also know that these issues that are happening in this city, they are opportunist elements. And there are those people who are actually either one trying to mislead the law enforcement agencies in terms of our operation. We know that people are using social media and other networks to do character assassination of certain individuals and putting their lives at risk, including of those families, and actually causing more harm than actually good. We also know that there are certain other political parties that have actually jumped into the situation right now to try to cause that element of panic, but others with that are being viewed in a very serious light because there is no information that we should take lightly. But South African citizens should know there is a government. If there is going to be any official information about the threats that citizens are going to experience, it is only the South African government that have a responsibility for anyone within our borders, in our territory, who will be able to communicate that particular message. Therefore, that kind of a reference to that message is a hoax message, but we're keeping an eye on all these communications that seeks to actually cause a mayhem. With respect to the incident that happened on Sunday, well, I attended the meeting as a member of the NEC and a deployee here. But from a law enforcement point of view, firstly, as government, we have condemned the violence. Condolences have been sent out to the families of the deceased because any life lost, even if it's one, is too many. The incident happened not in the periphery. I mean within where we were as a leadership. But the most important thing is that the law enforcement agencies are working on that particular matter. We've been briefed as ministers and the premier there, and we're expecting the arrest very soon, and we're very happy about the cooperation we're receiving from the citizens. Well, the intelligence services, it could have been worse if intelligence services have not picked up the information. Like we know the planning in terms of actually putting us in the situation we're in. They've worked very hard from intelligence, whether it's defense intelligence, crime intelligence, and state security to provide information, to assist the national joints to be able to do their own activities. And we've increased our numbers on the ground, but we'll never tell you where our numbers. But more importantly, also depending on communities. That's why even the arrests that are being made and the processes that must be undertaken, they should be able to bring those into book. Thanks, Comrade Chair.
Thank you, Minister Mahlobo.
Thank you very much, Ministers. I would like to just emphasize that from where we sit, it doesn't matter whether this started in the ANC or not. When the laws of our land are undermined, there should be stern action and firm action. It doesn't matter whether it's members of the ANC or members of another party. When there's destruction of property of the scale that started last night, the burning down of 19 buses, threat to life in a number of areas, including threat to attacking councillors. It doesn't matter who's responsible. The responsibility of the state is to protect its citizens. And that's what we are here to do. It doesn't matter which party is responsible if we have had disruption of normal economic activity, including schooling, the blocking of roads, significant inconvenience caused to many citizens wanting to go to work, school children who we met in Mamelodi wanting to go to school. The responsibility of government is to act and act firmly. So that's what we are doing.
Thank you very much, Premier. Cape Pretoria? I'll take 3 hands. Sorry, General.
Sorry, before we talk about police visibility, now that the Premier has spoken, I should say this, that when we landed in Mamelodi, we were on a helicopter. When the citizens, when the community saw the Premier of Gauteng, it generated a lot of excitement. Not only did it generate a lot of excitement and positive energy, but people started mobilizing themselves around in the area and moved towards the area where we were. And at that point, we then all took a decision that the Premier should actually address the community, because it was not a hostile community. And the people were very receptive to the speech of the Premier, even though it was an ad hoc kind of arrangement, nothing was planned. But what was interesting for me was when he kept on emphasizing that those who are breaking the law should be arrested. Those who continue to break the law such that now we have children who can't even go to school, and our people can't even go to work, and so on. The people were very, very positive. But of course, because it's a big group, it wouldn't have been possible for people to give more information about that, because no one would want to be exposed in that kind of situation. So the reason why I was saying earlier on, I'm sure if we had had more time, and if it was a well-organized kind of meeting, well-arranged, there's a lot of information, because probably we would have had a question and answer session, because the question and answer session we had was very brief. We had about 5 speakers, am I right? But I think there is a lot of information we could have easily gathered, and I think it helped us. It helped us that the Premier took the decision to address the people, because now I think even those who accompanied us and those foot soldiers who are on the ground now know which areas to focus on to get more information about what is happening in the country. Thank you very much.
General Mawela. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. The issue of increased visibility, whether we have mobilized the resources outside the province, the answer for now is no. We have mobilized resources within Gauteng province and police headquarters. Whether visibility also include Operation Fiela, the answer is no. The visibility which we have embarked on currently, it will include crime prevention and crime combating activities and crowd management activities. Coming to what was discussed in the net joints, as we all know that the net joints, it's a security structure and it discusses security matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. members of the media will have the round in Pretoria. I'll start with the gentleman on my left, and the next one, Barry, and then the last gentleman with his earphones. Please mention your name.
Good day, everybody. Sipho Stirman from SABC TV News. Just a couple of questions to the panel there. One, just to follow up on the Cape Town question. So, because right now in Pretoria, the Tswane municipal offices have been closed. We were there. Employees have been told that the word is that they've been told to go for their own safety. So, are you saying that tomorrow that will change? They will return to work and the situation will be back to normal? If you can just comment on that. And number two, in the lead up to the announcement of Thoko Didiza as the mayoral candidate, there were always ramblings on the ground that, you know, that some violence or some resistance might, you know, come out from the region. Why did intelligence services not pick it up? Only now, when the matter really got out of hand yesterday, that we started seeing efforts coming around. And also, we're hearing that this was a very well planned effort, that there was a meeting where it was organized, and if you look at it, the violence, you know, came out from east, west, and different parts of the region, and meaning that, and almost at the same time in the evening, meaning that there was some sort of coordination here, and that sort of give credence to the suggestion that this was very well planned by some political formations within Tswane who are unhappy with Thoko Didiza as the mayor candidate. If you can respond to that, please. Thank you.
Thulasizwe Simelane from ENCA. And just to pick up on the last question from Sipho about coordination, I'd like you to also address it, because some of the information that is coming through to us is suggesting that there is that element of coordination. And in fact, the names of specific people who would have an axe to grind with the ANC decision to deploy Thoko Didiza are being mentioned openly, people suggesting that these people are actually even financing. In one of the messages I've got, there's even a suggestion of a car that was purchased to sort of make this possible, a Fiat that has been made available for this. So are you looking at coordination, and specifically, are you investigating the role that may or may not have been played by the two protagonists in this particular instance, being the chairperson and deputy chairperson of the ANC in Tswane? My second question is much broader and perhaps is a political question. Whether it's the current riots we are seeing, or the xenophobic violence we've seen in past months, or, you know, instances in Vuwani, JP Hostel, etc., etc., where have we dropped the ball in terms of keeping our eye on the security situation in the country? And how does what is happening here and the availability of manpower to do wrong things at any given time on a weekday like today, what does it say in terms of the situation of unemployment and young people who are freely available to engage in wrongdoing? Are we at a point where this powder keg we've been warning about has actually exploded, or is in the early stages of exploding? Are you treating now this situation of unemployment and availability of young people to do wrong things at any given time as a national security matter?
Before I move on to Perry, may I request colleagues to stick to the issues and not go on and on and on. Let's just be direct on what the issues that we want to raise. Thank you very much. Barry?
Good afternoon, Barry Bateman, Eyewitness News. Just on, you say you've been on the ground, so have I. I've been there all day, and you talk about the police are going to be deployed in numbers or have been. Where are these people? I saw a group of people looting the USave shopping mall. They ran freely down Samaya Road West to the Dennerbloem Mall. They continued to loot there. Not a single police officer in sight. As I speak now, Solomon Mahlangu Drive remains closed. It's been closed for the last 4 hours. There's no police deployed there. I've seen very little visible policing today, and I've seen a lot of lawlessness on the part of these communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. The gentleman in...
All right. My name is Moluku Mloto from Power FM. I think my key question has been asked about the intelligence having been caught unawares, but maybe just to take it further there, in terms of your assessment going forward, what are you hearing on the ground? Is this commotion thwarted completely? But two other questions. I think the other one was asked by one of the colleagues in Cape Town about the Minister Mapisa Ngakula pointed out that this violence is not only confined to Tswane but to other parts of the country. Maybe if you can specify how are those violent incidents in other parts of the country related to this particular one. But finally, Minister Ngakula, again, you indicated that approximately 20 cases are being investigated, and you just said there are some arrests. I don't know if you don't have the exact figures of arrests, number of people who got
Thank you very much. More time. I'm appealing to our colleagues in the media. Let's just stick to the point and get it over and done with, because the ministers have another engagement in the next 30 minutes or less. Lady.
Antoinette Slavert from MoneyWeb. Could you just give us the facts that you have with regards to deaths and injuries? And then also, based on your intelligence, what do you expect for the next 24 hours?
The last question, and I'm afraid I must say it up front, this is going to be the last question.
Hi, Slee from Jacaranda FM. I just wanted to know the exact number from the security cluster, the number of law enforcement agencies that have been deployed on the ground, and does the security cluster feel that this is enough to manage the situation overnight?
Thank you, Silly. Minister.
Thank you very much. Maybe I should start with the last one. We never give numbers of security forces on the ground. Whether police, soldiers, or intelligence officers, that's information which is meant for people who are dealing with that kind of work. What I should say to you is that, as Barry said, for instance, he says he was in an area where there was no visible policing. Obviously, the net joints has been sitting. Even yesterday, they said, this morning we sat together with them. This afternoon, they continue to have another meeting. So you evaluate and assess the situation as the time goes. And in the process, you take a decision whether to increase the numbers or not, depending on the developments on the ground. So it's possible, Barry, I will not refute what you are saying. It would be possible that there were areas where there was no adequate deployment, or whether there was no deployment at all. But it's not as though there was no deployment whatsoever in the city of Tswane, in all of these areas which are affected. But we deploy according to information which we receive about a specific area. So what probably happened in this case is that as there are these sporadic incidents of violence, some people somewhere, probably people who never even anticipated would actually do it, then decided to. So I'm just saying that we will not say it is not true. It's probably true, but that does not mean that there is no visible policing. Everything is being done right now to make sure that there is adequate and proper deployment of police wherever they are needed. Now, the one question which I wanted to answer, so we should remove it from the question and answer session of this afternoon, is that which pertains to the ANC. The ANC had a media briefing yesterday morning, which was conducted by the Deputy Secretary General with other officials of, I think the Premier was also part of that media briefing. So anything which has to do with the ANC can be directed to Luthuli House. I did earlier on indicate that even though we are sitting here as deployees, as you know, of the African National Congress, but here we are sitting now as ministers responsible for the security of the Republic of South Africa. Our responsibility is to make sure that when you go to sleep tonight, you feel safe, you feel comfortable, that nothing will happen tomorrow. We're not saying nothing will happen tomorrow, but our responsibility together with all the law enforcement agencies is to prevent all acts of violence from continuing and destruction of property. So any matters of deployment of Comrade Thoko Didiza, of a car which was bought by whoever, a Fiat, those matters have nothing to do with us. What we are dealing with is if that person who has a car then decides to embark on violence, then irrespective of whose car it is or who bought the car, then we deal with the culprit. So nothing to do, this media briefing has absolutely nothing to do with the issues within the African National Congress. They belong to Luthuli House, and that's where you should raise the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With respect to the question of the closure of Tswane offices, we will probably have to deal, how does the media want us to deal with issues? Because I read an SMS, which was an alert. That particular alert, the intelligence services or the law enforcement agencies, we did a verification, and it has been proven that it has been false. Therefore, you can't continue to run a story or a narrative to say that the CPD is closed. But because people who are actually coming to work in the CPD, they're coming from various areas and various communities that are affected directly or indirectly. There is going to be any kind of apprehension if a kind of a message gets to be circulated. And we are saying to our citizens, it is the responsibility of government to communicate. If there is any threat that is faced by South Africans, the law enforcement agencies at various levels have the capacity, have the mechanism on how to communicate. If the authorities in some offices in the city of Tswane, they did a precaution, from a security arrangement is something normal, that if someone says there's a bomb in a house, should you stay in the house when someone says there's a bomb? Because your first reaction is to take a precautionary measure, you evacuate, then those that are capacitated with the necessary skills, they will be in a position to do an assessment. When an assessment is being done, you'll be able to do that. Therefore, precaution is the way to go. And if you are going to assist us to report in a responsible way so that we don't cause panic, because ultimately, any violence does not actually help anyone. There are a number of government offices here. This is the headquarters of the administration of our country. All our departments are here. If there is an incident of a precaution taken by the city of Tswane, it has not happened with the provincial departments or the national departments that are here. Therefore, we are saying this campaign of false flags is going to continue, but South Africans will know that if there is an information, we will communicate. Was the intelligence unable to pick up that there are people who are opposed, they've been planning? Probably we should find time and say, how does intelligence work? Because I hear the story all the time when you pick up information, in our own constitutional democracy, even if people are planning, you can't just go and arrest them if they are not actually involved in the actual act. You put the precautions, we are able to do certain things which are countermeasures. But you can imagine in a democratic society like ours where you pick up anything about people, you start to go and arrest them. Therefore, from the intelligence tradecraft, we are able to spot the information, validate it, act on it. The issues that there are people who are planning, who have planned, we know the people who are involved. We know them. But we're not actually going to have our investigation in public. We'll treat the matters with the sensitivity it deserves. The intelligence services, the police, the Hawks, and the prosecuting authority who are looking at those particular individuals. That's why we're referring to some arrests that have been made, and we're expecting to do more arrests. We will not be in a position to behave like if you have information, you started to announce that you're going to arrest so-and-so, we are investigating so-and-so. We are actually defeating the ends of justice. Imagine if there are criminals that were actually going to announce that we're going to put so many policemen and women, we're going to have a roadblock at this particular point in time. That's not how the security services are working. One of the things that we also have to say, what is the role of the media? We have always said that all South Africans are responsible. We are all responsible for our own security. I've always used the Swati language that now ulipois. It means all of us were policemen. If the media finds information that seeks to actually destroy our country, our heritage, and our hard-fought democracy, what should you do? Should you make it a scoop? Or should you act as a citizen and as a patriot and assist us to be able to apprehend those who are planning? That's why our chair, Comrade Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, thanks South Africans. We have received a lot of information. If the intelligence and the police never acted, like the Prima never slept, the minister here, myself, and other generals, they never slept. If we had not acted, the damage could actually have been serious. Those of you who were actually covering the story at night, you could see police visibility and increase in numbers, actually exactly after around 11 midnight and 12 midnight. These generals and men and women never slept to deal with those particular issues. The incident that has happened is regrettable, and we should be able to deal with. The question by Tula Sizwe that we are asking, we must know that in our case, there are matters that we are looking at, whether have we dropped the ball or not. Our democracy is very vibrant. Our institutions are very strong. Citizens, they enjoy their rights, like the rights to actually voice their grievance, present petitions to government. Is a manner in which they actually hold government accountable. But we have actually learned that amongst our own communities, there are those people who undermine these hard-earned rights, engaging in these acts of violence, intimidation, wanton destruction of property. Those are the people that South Africans must be able to stand up and say, not in our names. Those are the people that Comrade Prima is saying, we must act without any fear or favor. You look at the question now, in as much as people, they are raising their own issues politically, there are individuals and criminals here, including other people who are in positions of leadership in other parties, who are actually trying to take advantage of this situation. They are inciting violence. They are planning to actually continue to cause mayhem, irrespective of the position they hold in our communities. We will be able to bring the situation under control and be able to deal with those. The issues of unemployment, those are the issues that we all know in the experience of protests in South Africa. Those are the genuine issues people have. But there are those who are using those genuine issues to actually fulfill other ends. In as much as government has been very clear to say what is our program of action, you know the economy is actually struggling, not only in South Africa, in the world. And that's why we've actually put those programs that normally the economic cluster normally reports on them. Despite the challenges we have as a country, we've done well in 22 years. Despite the challenges we have, we cannot actually stoop low to this level to say violence is the way. Destruction of property is the way. Undermining of other people's rights is the way. That's why when you look at the situation we dealt in other areas, where children to say, please parents, don't ban our schools, we're banning our future. It can be a long address if you can actually say, have we dropped the ball? There are challenges in our country, but progress that has been made is beyond our recognition over just 22 years. Other countries, they think it's a miracle. The issue that intelligence was caught unaware, probably one day, as I was saying, understanding how the value chain in security works is very important. Thank you.
Premier?
Yes, I just want to emphasize that the disruption that was experienced in in the city. Today, in the townships in the city as well as in the offices, and the city has issued a statement to that effect, apologizing. It's an inconvenience to our citizens, to the residents of this great city in our province. I join the mayor's statement in apologizing those residents who went to the city's offices and found that the offices were closed. I also would like to apologize to people who could not get to work this morning because they woke up and found that the roads were blocked from Hammanskraal, Mamelodi, as well as in Atteridgeville. I want to assure the residents of our province that acting together with national government, the provincial government and the city have done everything today to ensure that there's no further disruption. We worked round the clock last night with the security services. We have been working the whole day today to ensure that there is no disruption. And one source of disruption, especially with the city closing the offices at some point out of this statement issued, is intimidation and threats, as well as this irresponsible statements of saying this is going to happen. Statements such as the one the media was quoting. Somebody just sending false statements. People are now coming from in this area. Please take, once anyone says they are now coming for you or they are coming to your area, please grab your bag and run. What are they trying to achieve, those who are doing this? We check with the police. This statement is especially about the CBD. There was a lot of threats and false information about what is happening in the CBD, whose intention was to shut down the offices, basically. That's what we think, to disrupt the CBD, including disrupting government services. We have national departments and provincial departments and city departments here. So what I want to repeat is that we're doing everything. We're working round the clock collectively to ensure that we restore normality tomorrow. If there's still an area of disruption tomorrow, we will descend on that. So we can't say there will be no area of disruption, but we can assure the people of our province, especially the people of this city, that everywhere where there's disruption, those who want to get up tomorrow, go to work, they should get up tomorrow and go to work. Everywhere where there's a disruption, we will be there. We will descend on that area. If there are areas where there's looting, as it has happened randomly, in that the police will be there. Where there are members of the community who need us to address us, we will be there on the ground. It's quite unfortunate that this has happened, but we will act quite decisively. I want to repeat that we will act firmly without fear or favor. It doesn't matter to which party any of the disruptors or people breaking the law belong. We will take action to ensure that there's normality in the city as soon as possible.
Ladies and gentlemen, through the
Sorry, Chair.
All right, and of course those were live visuals coming through from Tswane, where we've just seen Minister of Defence Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, who was addressing the media on the current situation on the Tswane protests. She stated that they have noted the criminal element and are taking necessary steps to deal with the perpetrators, adding that some have already been arrested. She appealed for members of the community to report those in violation and also stated that increased visible policing has been deployed to the areas. We saw on the panel the Minister of State Security, David Mahlobo, also Gauteng Premier David Makhura, who both condemned the destruction of property and threats to life, saying that it doesn't matter who's responsible, but the state's responsibility is to protect. We're going to take